The morning started like any other day at the Galactic Integration Academy. 3 alien students sat in the observation dome, watching the pine forests of northern Montana stretch toward distant mountains. Al adjusted his translator device and tried to focus on the lecture about Earth's ecosystem. His 6-fingered hands trembled slightly, as they always did when he thought about the predators that lived in those forests. Next to him, leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone whose species had mastered energy weapons 2,000 years ago. His blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the morning light. He found most of Earth's wildlife amusing at best. They had tamed their world long ago through superior technology. Sat between them, her 4 eyes blinking independently as she studied the forest canopy. Her natural camouflage shifted colors with her mood, currently a calm green that matched the pine trees outside. The loved learning about new worlds and Earth had proven endlessly fascinating. Their human instructor, Jake, stood at the front of the class explaining something about migration patterns. He was a patient teacher who seemed to understand that alien students needed extra time to grasp concepts humans found obvious. His brown hair was going gray at the temples, and he wore the standard academy uniform with casual ease. The alarm cut through his lecture like a knife. Red lights flashed across every wall. A sharp, pulsing sound filled the dome. Al jumped from his seat, his survival instincts screaming at him to run. His hand moved to his side where a weapon would normally hang. Skin shifted to a deep purple, the color of extreme alarm. Jake raised one hand calmly. The gesture somehow cut through the panic better than any words could have. He walked to the main display and tapped several commands. The alarm's volume lowered but didn't stop. "Everyone stay calm," Jake said in that level tone humans seem to use during emergencies. "We have a situation, but it's under control." Al wanted to laugh at the absurdity. The alarm was still blaring. How could anything be under control? He watched Jake pull up a map of the surrounding area on the screen. "A apex hunter has been detected approximately 5 miles from campus," Jake announced. "Earth Wildlife Management has been, and a response team is already en route." The words hit Al like physical blows. Here, on Earth, impossible. His legs went weak and he sat down hard. His confident expression vanished. His skin color deepened to a dark navy that signaled fear. "You cannot be serious," he said, his translator making his voice sound hollow. The apex hunter." His 4 eyes had gone completely black. All the color drained from her skin until she looked almost transparent. She made a small sound that her translator couldn't process. Jake looked at his 3 alien students with what might have been concern. "I take it you're familiar with the species." "Familiar?" Al's voice came out as a squeak. "Instructor, my people abandoned an entire colony world after a single appeared there. 300,000 evacuated. We never returned. My species deployed orbital bombardment against 120 years ago," added. His hands were now visibly shaking. "It survived the first 3 strikes. We had to glass the entire continent to be certain it was dead." Jake's eyebrows rose slightly. He typed something into his tablet, reading quickly. His expression didn't change much, which somehow made everything worse. Humans were supposed to panic when faced with certain death. That was normal, expected, but Jake just kept reading, his face calm. "I see," Jake said finally. "The Galactic database does list them as extremely dangerous. Level 7 apex predators, armored scales resistant to energy weapons, regenerative abilities, hunt using thermal and electromagnetic senses." He looked up from his tablet. "It also says here that no galactic civilization has ever successfully hunted one." "Because it cannot be done," Al said urgently. "Instructor, please. We must evacuate. The standard protocol is immediate planetary evacuation within a 50-mile radius, sometimes more if the terrain allows rapid movement." "The Academy sits on 2,000 acres," Jake replied. We have over 300 students and staff here from 40 different species. Evacuation would take hours. The creature is only 5 miles away." "Then we die," whispered. Her voice was barely audible even with the translator. "There is no other option." Jake set down his tablet and walked to the window. He looked out at the forest for a long moment. When he turned back, something in his expression had changed. Not fear, something else. Determination, maybe. Or perhaps just the strange human quality of refusing to accept the impossible. "The Earth Wildlife Management team will be here in 15 minutes, Jake said. "They handle situations like this regularly." "Regularly?" Stood up so fast his chair fell over. "Instructor, with respect, I do not think you understand what it is capable of. My people have the most advanced military in 3 sectors. We threw everything we had at one creature. It killed 200 soldiers before we finally stopped it." "I understand perfectly," Jake said. He walked back to his desk and picked up his communicator. "The team leader is Lisa Grant. She's handled 7 relocations in the past 2 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Al looked at her hands. They all looked back at Jake. 7, Al finally managed. 7. "They're an invasive species on Earth," Jake explained. "We think someone in the illegal exotic pet trade brought them here about 5 years ago. They're not native to this planet. When they escape or get released, we have to relocate them." "Relocate," repeated flatly. "Not kill, relocate." "Killing them is extremely difficult and messy," Jake said. "It's easier to capture and move them to uninhabited regions. Lisa's team specializes in non-lethal apex predator management." Al felt his mind struggling to process the words. Humans captured apex hunters multiple times, successfully, and considered it easier than killing them. The logic made no sense. It violated everything he knew about survival, about tactics, about basic self-preservation. Jake must have seen the confusion on their faces. He smiled slightly. "Would you like to observe? We can set up a mobile monitoring post at a safe distance. You could watch how humans handle apex predators." "That would be suicide," said immediately. "The monitoring post is reinforced," Jake replied. "It's designed for exactly this purpose. You'll be perfectly safe, and it might be educational." Al knew he should refuse. Every instinct screamed at him to get as far from here as possible, but he was also a biology student. His entire life had been spent studying living creatures, and here was Jake offering him the chance to see something no had ever witnessed. A human hunting party facing a... "I will observe," Al heard himself say. Stared at him like he'd gone insane. "You cannot be serious." "I am a scientist," Al said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "If humans can truly do what instructor claims, then I must see it. My people need to know." Skin flickered through several colors before settling on a determined orange. "I will also observe. If I die, at least I will die learning something new." All eyes turned to. The warrior stood rigid for a long moment, pride warred with survival instinct on his face. Finally, he straightened his shoulders. "Very well. I will observe as well. When this fails, someone must survive to warn the Galactic Council that Earth harbors." Jake nodded as if this was the most reasonable decision in the universe. He tapped his communicator. "Lisa, this is Jake. I'm bringing 3 students to the observation post. Yes, they're aware of the risks. We'll be there in 10 minutes." He ended the call and looked at his students. "The transport is waiting outside. Bring your field equipment and stay close to me. And please remember that you're about to watch human specialists at work. Trust their methods even when they seem strange." The 3 alien students followed Jake out of the dome. As they walked toward the waiting vehicle, Al looked up at the clear blue sky. Somewhere out there in those peaceful forests, a creature that had driven his ancestors from their homes was hunting, and humans were going to hunt it back. He wondered if he would live long enough to see how this ended. The observation post looked like a large metal box on wheels. Al climbed inside behind Jake, his legs still shaking. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with multiple screens showing different views of the forest. Temperature displays, motion sensors, and various other monitoring equipment lined the walls. A woman stood at the center console, studying the screens with intense focus. She wore practical field clothing in earth tones, and her dark hair was pulled back in a simple tie. When she turned to greet them, her brown eyes were calm and alert. "Jake," she said with a nod. "Students, I'm Lisa Grant, team leader for Wildlife Management Unit 7. Welcome to what's probably the strangest field trip you'll ever take." Al tried to respond, but his voice wouldn't work, managed a weak gesture of greeting, stood rigidly, his military training the only thing keeping him upright. Lisa smiled slightly, first time seeing a hunt. First time not evacuating from one, managed to say. "Fair enough." Lisa turned back to the screens. "My team is already in position. We've been tracking this one for 6 hours. It's young, probably only 3 years old. Male, scared and trying to establish territory." "You can tell all that?" asked, her 4 eyes focused on Lisa. "Can," Lisa replied. She tapped one of the screens, bringing up a video feed. "That's Cooper, our best tracker. He's been following its trail since dawn." The screen showed a young man crouched on the forest floor. He was examining something in the dirt that Al couldn't identify. His movements were slow and deliberate. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, just field clothes and a pack. "Is he not afraid?" Al whispered. "Oh, he's afraid," Jake said from behind them. "Fear keeps humans alert, but's been tracking predators since he was a kid. He knows what he's doing." On the screen, stood and made several hand gestures. The camera view shifted to show another team member responding with similar gestures. No words, just silent communication. "That's Amy Santos," Lisa explained. "Animal behavior specialist. She's analyzing the psychological state based on its movement patterns and territorial marking." Amy was a small woman with short black hair. She moved through the forest like she belonged there, stepping carefully around plants and rocks. She stopped near a tree and examined the trunk. Her hand hovered near deep gouges in the bark. "Claw marks," Lisa said. "Fresh within the last hour. The is marking territory aggressively. That means it's stressed." "Stressed" sounded confused. "It is an apex predator. What does it have to fear?" "Everything," Amy's voice came through the speakers. She must have activated her communicator. "This creature is far from home, in an unfamiliar environment. It doesn't understand the local prey species or threats. Right now, it's more scared than we are." Al stared at the screen. The idea of a being afraid seemed impossible. These creatures had terrorized entire star systems. His people still told stories about them to frighten children into obedience. "How do you know?" he asked. Amy touched her communicator. She must have heard him. "Look at the claw marks. See how deep they go, how many times it scraped the same spot. That's anxiety behavior. A confident predator makes shallow marks. This one is practically carving." The camera view changed again. This time it showed a man with medical equipment checking readings on a tablet. He had sandy hair and moved with careful precision. "Greg, medical specialist," Lisa said. "He's preparing tranquilizers calibrated to physiology. We pulled the data from the Galactic Biological Database." "Tranquilizers will not work," said flatly. "Metabolism is too fast. They process sedatives in seconds." "Most sedatives, yes," Greg's voice came through clearly. "But we're not using standard tranquilizers. We synthesize something based on their natural sleep chemistry. Their brains still need rest, which means they have to have some vulnerability to sleep-inducing compounds." Al watched Greg carefully measure out doses. The precision was impressive. Greg treated this like a normal medical procedure, not preparation for facing a legendary monster. Another screen activated. A woman with efficient movements was setting up equipment near a clearing, portable devices that looked like speakers or projectors. "Equipment coordinator," Lisa said. "She's establishing our control perimeter. Those devices create sound and light patterns that make the uncomfortable in certain directions." "You are hurting it," said suddenly. Her skin had shifted to a thoughtful blue, like prey animals. "Exactly like prey animals," Lisa confirmed. "We're not fighting we're guiding its behavior, making some areas seem dangerous, others seem safe. Eventually, it goes where we want it to go." The final screen showed a man checking communication equipment. He was coordinating all the team's movements, keeping everyone connected and aware of each other's positions. "Chris Palmer, Communications," Lisa said. "He's our tactical coordinator, makes sure nobody surprises anybody else, including the—" Al counted the team members. 6 humans total, including Lisa. 6 humans hunting the most dangerous predator in galactic space. No heavy weapons, no armor, just equipment and planning and that strange human calmness. "Your people will die," he said quietly. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. Lisa looked at him directly. "We've relocated 7, 0 casualties, not even serious injuries. We don't take unnecessary risks." "All risk is unnecessary when facing argued. "Tell that to the civilian population 5 miles that way," Lisa gestured toward the east. "We have a town with 3,000 people in that direction. If we don't deal with this creature, it deals with them." The screen suddenly showed movement. Camera view swung toward a section of forest. He raised his hand in a stopping gesture. Everyone on his team froze instantly. They emerged from behind a cluster of trees. Al's breath stopped. He had seen images before, but images couldn't capture the reality. The creature stood 8 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in overlapping scales that looked like dark metal. 4 legs ending in claws that could tear through steel. A long tail with bone spikes along its length. The head was broad and flat, with sensory organs that glowed faintly as it tested the air. It was beautiful and terrible, and absolutely deadly. Made a soft sound of terror, stepped backward despite being inside a reinforced observation post. Al couldn't move at all. This head turned toward, those sensory organs brightened. It had detected him. Lisa's voice was calm. "Status." "It sees me," replied. His voice was steady. 60 meters, evaluating whether I'm prey or threat." The took 1 step forward, then another. It moved with terrible grace, each footfall silent despite its size. The sensors showed its body temperature rising, its electromagnetic field strengthening. It was preparing to charge. "Back away slowly," Amy's voice instructed. "Maintain eye contact. Show dominance without aggression." Began moving backward. Each step was controlled and measured. He kept his eyes locked on his hands stayed visible and unthreatening. The matched his movement, stepping forward as stepped back. The distance between them remained constant, 60 meters, then 55, then 50. "It's going to charge," whispered. The lowered its head. Its muscles coiled. Every sign pointed to an imminent attack. Al wanted to close his eyes but couldn't look away. Reached into his pocket slowly. He pulled out a small device. His thumb hovered over a button. The charged. "Press the button." A sound erupted from the device, too low for Al to hear properly, but felt in his bones. The screens showed the sound waves as visible distortions in the air. The stopped 3 meters from, its head tilted in confusion. The glowing sensory organs flickered and dimmed. It made a sound, something between a growl and a whine. Stood his ground. He held the device steady. The sound continued. The backed up 2 steps, then 3. It shook its head like something was bothering it. The aggressive posture melted into uncertainty. Slowly backed away. The watched him go but didn't follow. After a full minute was 30 meters away. He turned off the device. He kept backing up until he was out of sight. The observation post was silent. Al realized he'd been holding his breath. He gasped in air. What's voice shook? What was that? Use low-frequency vocalizations for social communication, Amy explained. Her voice came through the speakers like she was discussing the weather. That sound mimics a submission call from a larger male. Just told it he's the dominant one in this territory. He faced down with a recording. Al couldn't believe it. With understanding, Lisa corrected. Knows that predators don't want to fight. They want to eat and survive. Fighting is expensive and dangerous. If he can convince them that he's not worth fighting, it won't fight. On the screen, the moved away from where had been. It seemed agitated but not aggressive. It marked another tree, then moved deeper into the forest. Phase 1 complete, Lisa said. The now knows humans are in its territory. It's trying to decide whether to relocate or defend. We'll give it 2 hours to calm down, then start Phase 2. She turned to look at the 3 alien students. Still want to evacuate? Al found his voice. No, we stay. Hours felt like 2 days. Al watched the screens as Lisa's team moved through the forest with careful coordination. They were setting up what Lisa called the control perimeter, establishing boundaries that would unconsciously avoid. Worked on her devices near the western edge of the creature's territory. Each piece of equipment looked simple, but the readings on the observation post screens showed complex patterns of sound and light. These create frequencies that irritate sensory organs, explained through her communicator. Not painful, just uncomfortable, like how humans don't like standing near high-pitched sounds, that will naturally move away from these areas. You are building a cage without walls, observed. Her skin had shifted to an interested yellow. More like a path, Lisa corrected. We're encouraging movement in one direction while discouraging it in others. The thinks it's making its own choices. Studied the tactical display. His military training was evident in how he analyzed the team's positions. Your formation has gaps. The creature could easily break through your perimeter here. He pointed to a section of the map. That gap is intentional, Chris replied from his position. His voice carried the patience of someone used to explaining strategy. That's the direction we want it to go, toward a natural cave system about 3 miles northeast. The caves can be sealed and converted into temporary holding. And if it does not go toward the caves, asked. Then we adjust, Lisa said simply. Plans are guidelines, not laws, that gets a vote in how this goes. On the main screen, Amy was studying tracks near a stream. She knelt beside the water, examining disturbed mud and vegetation. Her movements were slow and thoughtful. The drank here about 40 minutes ago, Amy said. It's staying close to water sources, probably because this environment is drier than it's used to. That gives us another control point. Appeared on another screen, placing something near a cluster of rocks. Al leaned closer. It looked like a small container with a dark liquid inside. Scent markers, Jake explained. He had been quiet for most of the observation, letting the students watch without interruption. Creating a false trail. The scent mimics territorial markers from another male. Our target will think there's competition. You are lying to it, Al said. We're communicating in a language it understands, Jake replied. Predators negotiate territory through scent and marking. We're joining that negotiation. They appeared on the eastern camera. It was moving through dense undergrowth, its scaled body sliding between trees that should have blocked something that size. The creature stopped suddenly, its head raised. The sensory organs glowed brighter. It found markers, Amy said. Her voice had a note of satisfaction. Watch its behavior. They approached the scent marker cautiously. It circled the area, clearly agitated. Its claws dug into the ground. The tail lashed back and forth, striking trees hard enough to crack bark. It believes another is in its territory, Lisa explained. That's a threat to its resources and safety. It needs to either challenge the intruder or relocate. How do you know it will choose relocation? Asked. Because it's already stressed from being in a strange environment, Amy answered. Adding more stress through territorial competition makes staying here less appealing. The path toward the caves has no competitor scent. That's the easiest direction. As if following the script, the turned northeast. It moved with clear purpose now, heading away from the false territorial markers. Phase 2 progressing, Chris reported. Target moving toward Waypoint Charlie. All teams advanced to secondary positions. The human team members began relocating. They moved independently but with obvious awareness of each other's positions. Nobody had to be told exactly where to go. They just knew. How do they coordinate so well? Asked. His tone suggested professional interest overcoming his fear. They barely speak. Training and trust, Lisa said. We've worked together for 3 years. We know each other's methods and thinking patterns. Communication becomes instinct. Al thought about his own people. Worked in groups, but always with clear hierarchy and detailed instructions. The idea of moving independently while maintaining coordination seemed almost impossible. The screens showed clouds gathering overhead. Within minutes, rain began falling. Light at first, then heavier. The camera views became obscured by water droplets. Rain's voice carried concern. The scent markers are washing away. Al felt a surge of vindication. The plan was failing. Humans were fallible after all. They would escape or attack, and they would have to evacuate just like any reasonable species would have done from the start. But Lisa didn't sound worried. Can we use this? There was a pause. Al could see on his screen, standing in the rain and thinking. Water ran down his face, but he didn't seem bothered. Yes, said finally. Don't like heavy rain. Their thermal sensing gets disrupted by the cold water. They'll seek shelter. Amy analysis, Lisa prompted. The caves are the nearest significant shelter, Amy replied. She was checking something on her tablet, apparently unbothered by the rain soaking her equipment. Given the stress level and the weather, it should move toward cover within the next hour. So the rain helps us, said slowly. Her skin flickered with confused colors. Nothing is entirely bad or good, Jake said. It's all about adaptation. Humans learned that lesson long ago. The team adjusted quickly, repositioned her sound barriers to account for rain interference. Chris updated everyone's positions based on the new weather conditions. Greg checked his tranquilizer compounds to ensure the rain wouldn't affect their potency. And Amy moved ahead, scouting the route between this position and the caves. They worked together without needing to discuss it, each anticipating the other's actions. On my world, said quietly, we would have aborted the mission. Weather complications mean too many variables. On Earth, Lisa replied, weather is always a variable. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, floods. Waiting for perfect conditions means never doing anything. They appeared on the main screen again. It was moving faster now, clearly uncomfortable in the rain. Its head swung back and forth, searching. The glowing sensory organs were dimmer, just as had predicted. It's heading for the caves, Amy confirmed. Intercept in approximately 90 minutes at current pace. The team settled into position around the cave entrance. This part required precise placement. They needed to allow the inside while preventing it from escaping once it realized the trap. Al watched Greg set up his tranquilizer system. It consisted of small launchers hidden in the rock face around the cave entrance, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. The cave has only one entrance, Chris explained, highlighting it on the tactical map. Once the target is inside, we seal it with a force field generator. The portable units can maintain containment for up to 6 hours. And if the breaks through the force field, Al had to ask. Then we use Plan B, Lisa said. And if that fails, Plan C, we have contingencies for every likely scenario. How many plans do you have? Asked. 12, Lisa answered without hesitation, though we've never needed past Plan E. The rain continued for another hour. They moved steadily toward the caves, driven by discomfort and the instinct for shelter. The team held their positions despite being soaked through. They showed no signs of giving up or complaining. Al realized something as he watched them. These humans weren't succeeding because they were stronger or better armed than they were succeeding because they simply refused to quit. No matter what obstacles appeared, they found solutions. Weather, terrain, unexpected creature behavior, none of it stopped them. Target is 500 meters from cave entrance, Chris reported. All systems ready. Lisa stood up. Her entire demeanor shifted into higher focus. Team, this is it. Remember the protocol. We let it go all the way inside. Amy, you make the final call on when to seal the entrance. Understood, Amy replied. They appeared on the cave entrance camera. It paused at the opening, sensory organs scanning the interior. For a long moment it just stood there, testing, evaluating. Al held his breath. Everything depended on this moment. If they sensed the trap and fled, the entire operation would need to start over, maybe in worse conditions. The creature took one step into the cave, then another. Its movements were cautious but steady. The darkness inside seemed to appeal to it, a safe place away from the rain and the confusing sense of this strange territory. Target is entering, Amy said softly. 40% inside, 50%. They moved deeper into the cave. Its tail disappeared from view. Only its head remained visible at the entrance, still checking the surroundings. 70%, Amy continued. 80. They took 3 more steps. Now it was completely inside the cave, moving toward the darker recesses. Seal it, Amy commanded. Activated the force field generator. A shimmer appeared across the cave entrance, invisible except for a slight distortion in the air. The containment was active. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. They continued exploring the cave interior, unaware of what had just occurred. Then it turned around. The creature saw the force field, or sensed it. Its body language changed instantly from curious to alert. It approached the entrance and reached out one clawed foot. The claw touched the force field and bounced back. They tried again with more force. Same result. It roared, the sound making every screen in the observation post vibrate. Force field holding, reported. Power levels stable. They charged the barrier. Its full weight and strength slammed into the force field. The readings on the screen spiked. Power levels dropped 15% from that single impact. That is not going to hold, said flatly. They charged again, and again. Each impact drained more power from the generators, 20%, 25%, 30%. We need to move to now, Greg said urgently. Wait, Amy cut in. Give it a minute. A minute, Greg sounded incredulous. Amy, the field won't last 5 more charges. Trust me, Amy said. Just wait. They prepared for another charge. Its muscles coiled. Its sensory organs blazed with light and fury. They charged the force field again. The impact sent power levels down to 65%. Red warnings flashed across the observation post screens. Al gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles turning a darker shade of blue. Amy, Greg's voice held an edge now. We need to act now. Wait, Amy repeated. She was watching her own screens intently, studying this body language. Look at its movement pattern. Al tried to see what she was seeing. The creature looked enraged. It paced back and forth in front of the force field, its tail lashing violently. It charged again, striking the barrier with its shoulder. Power levels dropped to 60%. It's exhausting itself, Amy said. Each charge is slightly weaker than the last. The intervals between charges are getting longer. Because it's getting tired of trying to escape, Lisa said slowly. Understanding dawned in her voice. Not because it's getting tired physically. Exactly, Amy confirmed. It's frustrated and scared. The aggression is a panic response, not genuine attack behavior. If we tranquilize it now while it's in this state, its heart rate and metabolism are too elevated. Greg's compounds won't work properly and we risk cardiac failure. Shook his head in disbelief. You are worried about the creature's health while it tries to kill you. We're not trying to kill it, Lisa replied. Just relocate it. That means keeping it healthy. The charge twice more in quick succession. Power levels hit 55%. The force field generators were designed to maintain containment down to 20%, but the margin for error was shrinking. Amy, please tell me you have a plan, Chris said. His calm was starting to crack just slightly. Lower the stress stimuli, Amy said decisively. Turn off all the sound barriers outside the cave. Reduce lighting from our equipment. Stop all movement near the entrance. Remove everything that's making the field threatened. That goes against every containment protocol, Greg argued. We need to maintain pressure to keep the target compliant. The target is a living creature, not a military opponent, Amy countered. It's not going to comply through intimidation. We need to remove the panic triggers. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Al could see her weighing the options. This was the decision point. Trust Amy's expertise or follow standard procedures. Do it, Lisa ordered. Everyone stand down from containment positions. Chris, kill all external lights. Shut down the sound barriers. Everybody back off 50 meters. The team obeyed without question. The screens showed them retreating from the cave entrance. The lights winked out one by one. The sound barriers powered down. Within 60 seconds, the area around the cave was quiet and dark except for the rain. Inside the cave, the stopped packing. Its head turned, sensory organs sweeping the area. It approached the force field cautiously, testing it with one claw. When it didn't detect any humans nearby, its aggressive posture began to relax slightly. It's working, whispered. Her skin had shifted to a hopeful pink. The moved away from the entrance. It circled the interior of the cave, checking every corner. Finding no threats and no escape, it finally settled against the far wall. Its breathing slowed. The sensory organs dimmed. Heart rate decreasing, Greg reported. He was monitoring the creature's vital signs through the medical scanners. Still elevated but coming down. Blood chemistry stabilizing. How long until we can safely tranquilize? Lisa asked. Give it 15 minutes, Greg said. Let the stress hormones clear its system. Those 15 minutes were tense. They remained against the wall, occasionally testing the force field but without the previous aggression. It seemed to be accepting its situation, at least temporarily. Al watched the power levels. They had stabilized at 52%, enough for containment but not much margin for error if something went wrong. Approaching safe levels for, Greg announced. Heart rate is down to 200 beats per minute. That's elevated for a but within acceptable parameters. Amy, Lisa prompted. Amy studied her screens carefully. Psychological state is shifting from panic to resignation. I think we're good. But Greg, start with a lower dose than calculated. If it panics again during the process, we want room to increase gradually. Lower dose means it might not work, Greg warned. Higher dose on a stressed animal means possible death, Amy shot back. We go low and safe. Your call, Greg said. Preparing tranquilizer system, launching in 60 seconds. Al could see the hidden launchers activating on the cave wall cameras. Tiny panels slid open, revealing needle-tipped darts. The system was impressively concealed. They had no idea it was surrounded by tranquilizer delivery points. Launching in 3, 2, 1, Greg counted down. The darts fired with barely a sound. They were moving fast, propelled by compressed air. 6 darts struck the simultaneously, embedding in the gaps between its armored scales. The creature's reaction was immediate. It roared and lurched to its feet. The sensory organs flared bright. It spun toward the cave entrance and charged the force field again. "Power at 47%, called out. "That's getting close to critical." The staggered. The tranquilizers were beginning to work, but its metabolism was fighting the compounds. It charged again, but this time it stumbled halfway through the motion. Its legs weren't coordinating properly. "Heart rate spiking," Greg said urgently. 250 beats per minute. That's dangerous territory." The creature tried to charge once more. Its front legs gave out and it crashed to the cave floor. But it wasn't unconscious. It thrashed, trying to stand, its tail whipping back and forth and striking the cave walls. "Do we increase dosage?" asked. "No," Amy said firmly. "Its metabolism is processing the compound. We just need to wait. Adding more now could push it over the edge." "It could also break through the force field," pointed out. This thrashing had brought it close to the barrier several times. "Amy's right," Lisa decided. "We wait." The thrashing continued for another 2 minutes. Each moment felt endless. These movements became less coordinated, more sluggish. Its roars turned to confused growls. The sensory organs flickered on and off. Finally, the creature's struggles weakened to twitches. Its eyes began to close. The massive body settled onto the cave floor with a heavy thud. The tail gave one last weak lash, then went still. "Heart rate dropping," Greg reported. 180, 160, 140, approaching normal resting levels. "Is it unconscious?" Lisa asked. "Give it another 3 minutes to be sure," Greg advised. "We need full sedation before anyone approaches." Those 3 minutes felt longer than the entire operation so far. Al stared at the still form. Its chest rose and fell with regular breathing. The sensory organs were completely dark now. "Heart rate at 120, Greg said. "Respiration steady. Brain activity shows deep sedation. It's safe." Lisa stood up. "Amy, you're with me. Greg, monitor from here. Everyone else maintain positions. If something goes wrong, I want options." On the screens, Al watched 3 humans approach the cave entrance, deactivated the force field, and they stepped inside. They moved carefully but without apparent fear. Lisa carried medical monitoring equipment. Amy held a tablet showing this vital signs, had a large case of additional supplies. They reached the unconscious predator. For a moment, they all just looked at it. The creature that had driven civilizations from entire worlds. The monster that required orbital bombardment to defeat. And 3 humans were standing next to it, calmly preparing to move it. Greg entered next, carrying more medical equipment. He knelt beside this head and began attaching monitoring sensors to various points on its body. His hands were steady and professional. "Vital signs are good," Greg said. "Sedation depth is perfect. We have about 4 hours before it starts to wake." "That's plenty of time," Lisa replied. She tapped her communicator. "Transport team, we're ready for you." Within 20 minutes, a large vehicle arrived. It looked like a cross between an ambulance and a cargo transport. 6 more humans climbed out, all wearing wildlife management uniforms. They brought a specialized containment pod, a huge rectangular container with climate control and monitoring systems built in. The team worked together to lift the Even unconscious, the creature was enormously heavy. It took all 9 humans working in coordination to move it onto the transport pad and then into the containment pod. Al watched in stunned silence. They were treating the like a valued animal, not a threat to be eliminated. Greg continued monitoring its vital signs throughout the transport. Amy made notes about its behavior for the relocation team, photographed its scales and claws for research purposes. "Where will you take it?" asked through the observation post's communicator. "Northern Canada," Lisa replied. She was closing up the containment pod now, checking the seals carefully. There's a remote wilderness area about 3,000 miles from the nearest human settlement. Plenty of prey species, good territory. They should thrive there. And if it returns, asked, we'll relocate it again, Lisa said simply. As many times as necessary. We're not in the business of killing predators just for being predators. The transport vehicle began moving, carrying the away. Lisa's team gathered their equipment, checking that nothing was left behind. They moved with the efficient calm of people who had done this many times before. Noticed something on his scanner and picked up a scale that had been shed during the creature's thrashing. He examined it carefully, then placed it in a sample container. Geology department will want this, he said. They're studying the scale composition. Laughed always the scientist. That's why we're good at this, Amy added. We're curious about these creatures, not just scared of them. Lisa walked back toward the observation post. When she entered, she looked at the 3 alien students. Well, still think humans are crazy. Al didn't answer immediately. He was trying to process everything he'd witnessed. His people had run from. They had used their most powerful weapons. But humans had simply understood the creature well enough to guide its behavior and capture it safely. Not crazy, Al said finally. Just very, very different from everyone else. Lisa smiled. Different is what keeps us alive. 3 days later, Al sat in the Academy's main lecture hall with Anne. Jake stood at the front, but this time Lisa was with him. The debriefing session had been scheduled to help the alien students process what they had witnessed. The room felt different now. Before the incident, Al had seen it as just another classroom. Now he understood it was a place where humans shared knowledge that could reshape entire civilizations' approaches to survival. I still have trouble believing what I saw, Al admitted. His voice was steady now, not shaking like it had been during the operation. My people have stories about that go back 6 generations. All of them end with evacuation or death. How many have you actually relocated on Earth? Asked. His military bearing remained, but his tone had shifted from skepticism to genuine curiosity. 17 in the past 4 years, Lisa replied. 7 by my team, 10 by other wildlife management units across North America and Asia. 0 human casualties. 3 minor injuries, all from team members not following safety protocols. 17, repeated. Her skin was a thoughtful blue. That number is impossible for most species to comprehend. Jake pulled up a display showing a map of Earth. Red markers dotted various locations. These are confirmed and relocations. The original breeding pair probably escaped from a private collector about 6 years ago. We think there are now 30 to 40 on Earth. And you do not consider this an emergency? Sounded genuinely confused. We consider it a wildlife management issue, Lisa corrected. Like invasive pythons in Florida or wild boars in Texas. It's a problem, but it's manageable with proper knowledge and resources. Al studied the map. On my world, a single sighting would trigger planetary defense protocols. The defense fleet would mobilize. We would prepare for mass evacuation. It would consume resources for years. That's because you're treating them as military threats, Jake said. Humans learned thousands of years ago that predators aren't soldiers. They're animals with needs and behaviors we can understand. Lisa walked to a different screen and brought up images. Al recognized some of them from his studies. A massive bear with huge claws, a tiger with distinctive stripes, a great white shark with rows of teeth. Earth has always had apex predators, Lisa explained. Creatures that could easily kill humans. For most of our history, we didn't have advanced technology. We couldn't just orbital strike a problem or evacuate to space stations. We had to learn to coexist. Or be eaten, added. He had joined the debriefing along with Amy and Greg. The whole team was present now. Exactly, Amy agreed. Early humans were prey animals at first. We were food for larger predators, but we developed tools and cooperation and, most importantly, observation skills. We watched how predators behaved, learned their patterns, understood their needs. And then you became the predators, said. There was respect in his voice now. We became something more complex than that, Lisa corrected. We became the species that could choose. We could hunt predators when necessary, or we could live alongside them, or we could study and protect them. That flexibility is what made humans dominant on Earth. Greg brought up biological data on his tablet. Every species has vulnerabilities. The seems invincible, but it still needs food, water, and rest. It still responds to certain stimuli. Once you understand the biology and psychology, it becomes manageable. Manageable, Al repeated the word slowly. It seemed inadequate for describing the operation he had witnessed. You made it look simple. It wasn't simple, Lisa said firmly. It was the result of years of training, careful planning, and real-time adaptation. Simple and easy are different things. Had been quiet, her 4 eyes studying the various displays. I have a question that troubles me. If humans can capture the galaxy's deadliest predator, what does that mean for the rest of us? Should we fear you? The directness of the question made everyone pause. Al was glad had asked it. He had been thinking the same thing but hadn't found the courage to voice it. Lisa met's eyes steadily. That's a fair question, and I'm going to answer it honestly. Yes, humans are dangerous. We're exceptional hunters. We're persistent, adaptable, and we don't quit. Those same skills we used on the could theoretically be used against other species. Then why should we trust you? Asked. Because we choose not to, Jake said. That's the whole point. Humans have the capability for violence, but we also have the capability for compassion. We can hunt, but we can also protect. We can dominate, but we can also cooperate. Lisa continued the thought. Every dangerous animal on Earth could hurt humans. Bears, sharks, wolves. But we don't eliminate them. We protect them. We create preserves where they can live safely. We spend enormous resources on conservation because we believe those predators have value beyond their threat level. The we captured is being relocated to territory where it can thrive, Amy added. We're not punishing it for being what it is. We're giving it a better environment where it won't conflict with civilization. Al felt something shift in his understanding. You treat the way you treat your own predators. Of course, Lisa said. Why would we treat it differently? It's an animal in a place it doesn't belong. That's not its fault. Humans brought it here through illegal trade. It's our responsibility to fix that problem humanely. My people would never think that way, admitted. We see threats and we eliminate them. That's how they survived and prospered. Did it make you safer? Jake asked. Or did it just give you the illusion of safety? Was quiet for a long moment. I do not know how to answer that. Greg leaned forward. Here's what I learned working with wildlife management. The more you use force as your only solution, the more you depend on force. Eventually, you meet something your force can't handle. But if you develop understanding as your primary tool, you can adapt to almost anything. That's what happened with the rain during the operation, said suddenly. The weather changed your plan, but you adapted. You used it as an advantage. Exactly, Lisa confirmed. We didn't fight the rain. We incorporated it into our strategy. That's the human approach. Accept what you can't control and adapt around it. Pulled up footage from the operation. Al watched the charge being stopped by the submission call device. The moment that should have ended in death but ended in understanding instead. Can this be taught? Al asked. Could my people learn to do this? Yes, Lisa said without hesitation. It requires patience and study and a willingness to see predators as complex creatures instead of simple threats, but any species can learn it. The Galactic Council should know about this, said. There are dozens of worlds with invasive predator problems, worlds we've abandoned because we couldn't eliminate the threats. Jake and Lisa exchanged a look. Jake nodded slightly, and Lisa turned back to the students. The Galactic Council does know, Lisa revealed. Earth has been quietly consulting on wildlife management issues for the past 2 years. We've helped with 7 different planetary situations. The Council has been testing whether human methods work in galactic contexts. Al felt stunned. How did I not know this? Because it's not widely publicized, Jake explained. Some species find it embarrassing to admit they need help with problems humans can solve. Others worry about the political implications of Earth having such unique capabilities. There is fear, said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Lisa confirmed. Some council members worry about what humanity represents. A species that can hunt anything, adapt to anything, survive anything. That's threatening to civilizations that achieved peace through technology and isolation. But you are not threatening, said. Her skin had shifted to a sincere orange. You are protective. You captured the to keep it safe as much as to keep civilians safe. That's what we're trying to demonstrate, Jake said. Earth wants to be known as protectors, not predators. We have the skills to hunt, but we choose to use those skills for conservation and management instead. Lisa brought up a new display. It showed a proposal document. The Galactic Wildlife Management Initiative. Earth is proposing to train specialists from other species in our methods, create mixed teams that can handle invasive predator problems across the galaxy, turn abandoned worlds back into livable territory. You want to spread these skills, Al said. We want to help, Lisa corrected. Humans aren't special because we're the only ones who can do this. We're just the first ones who had to learn it to survive, but anyone can develop these abilities with proper training. Stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the Montana wilderness where just days ago I had been hunting. I need to report this to my military command. They need to understand what Earth represents, not a threat but a resource. I will speak to the council, Al added. My people have been ruled by fear for too long. If humans can face, perhaps we can learn to face them too. Skin rippled through several colors before settling on determined red. The value knowledge above all else. What I have learned here must be shared. Your methods could change how the entire galaxy thinks about survival. Lisa smiled. That's all we're asking for. Share what you learned. Help other species understand that there are alternatives to fear and force. Humans aren't trying to dominate the galaxy. We just want to make it safer for everyone. Including the, Amy added with a slight smile. Especially the, Greg agreed. Brought up one final image. It was a recent photo from the remote camera drones monitoring the relocated in Canada. The creature was hunting successfully in its new territory. It looked healthy, and if it could look content, this one did. That's what success looks like, said. Not a dead predator, not an evacuated planet, just an animal living where it belongs, no longer a threat to anyone. Al stared at the image. 3 days ago, he had been terrified of this creature. Now he saw it differently. Not as a monster, but as a living being that humans had understood well enough to guide and protect. I have one more question, Al said. Why do you care? The is not from Earth. It is not your responsibility. Lisa was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. On Earth, humans have a saying. We borrowed it from an old story about hunting tigers in India. The saying is, the deadliest thing in the forest is not the predator you fear. It's the hunter who learned to respect what makes it dangerous. I do not understand, admitted. Respect means understanding, Jake explained. When you respect a predator, you don't dismiss it or fear it irrationally. You study it, learn from it. And in learning, you find solutions beyond violence. That's what separates humans from our prey ancestors. We learn to respect the things that hunted us. And now you respect the said. We respect all predators, Amy confirmed. Even the dangerous ones, especially the dangerous ones, because they teach us the most about survival and adaptation. Lisa walked to the door, preparing to leave. She turned back to face the three alien students. "You came to Earth to learn about humans. I hope you learned the most important lesson. We're not fearless. We're not invincible. We just refuse to let fear or difficulty stop us from doing what's right, whether that's protecting civilians or protecting from unnecessary harm." Both at the same time added, "That's the trick." The debriefing ended, but Al knew the real learning was just beginning. He had data to analyze, reports to write, and recommendations to make to his government. His entire worldview had been challenged and reshaped in 3 days. As he left the lecture hall Al looked up at the Earth sky. It was the same sky that sheltered bears and tigers and sharks and dozens of other apex predators. The same sky that now sheltered 17. And somehow, despite all those dangers, humans thrived. Not through superior weapons, not through running away, through understanding, through patience, through respecting what made their world dangerous and learning to coexist with it. "Humanity is terrifying," said quietly as they walked. "Yes," Al agreed, "but perhaps that is what the galaxy needs. A species terrifying enough to face our nightmares, yet compassionate enough to protect them." Skin shifted to a peaceful blue. "I think we just witnessed the future of galactic civilization, and it looks like a human standing 3 meters from a charging, holding nothing but a sound device and enough courage to trust their knowledge." Al nodded. He would remember that image for the rest of his life. Cooper, standing calmly while a legendary predator charged toward him, not through recklessness, not through foolish bravery, through understanding so deep it became confidence. That, more than anything else, was what humanity offered the galaxy. The knowledge that understanding conquers fear, and that even the most unkillable predator could be guided, managed, and protected by those patient enough to learn its nature. The lesson was simple. The execution was not, but humans had proven it could be done. Now it was up to the rest of the galaxy to decide whether to learn from Earth's example or continue running from their fears. Al had already made his choice. He would learn, and he would teach others, because if humans could hunt, then perhaps the galaxy's other species could learn to be brave too.